Okay. So what is it that you wanted to talk to me about?
Well, we've been trying to balance the books for a week now. And for some reason, they're not balancing.
I'm sorry?
There's about $3,000 missing, and we're trying to figure out where it went.
Well, it's probably just some accounting error.
It is not an accounting error.
Well, it could be.
It is not an accounting error. Well, it was not my accounting error.
This is the first I've heard of it. They never tell me anything. I like it that way.
So if you are like Angela and Oscar and Kevin and you're having trouble balancing your books for your company, you want to do what's called bank reconciliation, which is all of lesson 5.2. So every single month, the bank will send you a statement and it's going to report three different things. It's going to report the withdrawals or the money coming out of the account. So that could be checks, that could be cash, that could be electronic funds. It will also report the deposits or the money going into the account. And the last thing that it will report are any service charges or fees that the bank might give you. So the big thing here is that your accounting records and the bank records should match or equal out and be the same. But there are 4 reasons where they might not match. The first reason is if you got a service charge or fee that you weren't aware of from the bank, you might show that you have more money than what the bank shows you. Some examples of service charges or fees could be like an overdraft where you wrote a check and you didn't have enough money. It could be an ATM fee or something like that. The next reason a bank record wouldn't match your record would be an outstanding deposit. And that would be if you've got a check and you went and deposited it, but it hasn't been recorded by the bank yet. Now, things go through pretty fast today in the world of technology, but this usually happens at the end of the month. Let's say you go into the bank and it's right before the bank closes and you deposit a check. That might not show up until the next day, especially if you're at the end of the day or, like I said, right at the end of the month. It'll hang out and it'll say pending. On the flip side of this, you might have an outstanding check. So let's say that I wrote somebody a check and they haven't cashed it yet. That would be standing out there. So I'm going to show that I have less money than the bank shows because my check hasn't been cashed. The other example of an outstanding check is if I wrote it to someone and I did what's called post-dated.
$1 million? Thanks, Bart. I owe you one. That's a post-dated check, remember. Don't cash it till the year 10,000. Okay.
So if today is April 22nd and I went to Target and I wrote a check and I wrote April 25th on the check, Target is not able to cash that check until April 25th. And then the last reason your record and the bank record might not match would be if there's a math error. Now that can happen either on your end or honestly, sometimes it can happen on the bank end. So what we want to do is make sure that we are journalizing and recording any service charges that might happen. Now, again, a service charge is a monthly fee by the bank. And when we look at our check stub, the service charges are going to be recorded in this other section. In addition to recording it on the check stub, we have to journalize our service charge. So a service charge is money coming out of our checking account, which is the same as cash coming out. So if cash is decreasing, that's going to be our credit on the journal. And then we're going to debit a miscellaneous expense that occurred. So this is what it would look like if we filled out a service charge on a check stub. So let's just practice this. Let's say we have an $8 late fee and a $25 overcharge fee that we realize happen when we get our bank statement. The first thing on the check stub we'll do is we'll write out the words service charge followed by how much that service charge was. So this example is service charge $8. And then I would do the overcharge fee in the same way. So overcharge fee, and that was $25. The next thing I'll do is I'm going to total the whole other amounts. So in this case, I have $8 plus $25, and the total of all my other amounts was $33. And then the last thing is I have to do a subtotal. So I'm going to take my previous subtotal of $4,972, and I'm going to subtract any of those other fees. So subtract $33, and that means that actually in my bank account, I only have $4,939. So like I said, once you have this recorded on a check stub, you also have to journalize it. Here's an example of what this transaction would look like. So it says I received my bank statement in August and there was a service charge of $8 and I didn't realize it. Memorandum number 3. So my date is August 31st because that's when I got my bank statement. I can put my M3 as my doc number. And then service charges is money coming out of my checking account. Checking accounts are the same as cash. So cash going out or decreasing as a credit. And then I have to have my debit, which again is going to be a miscellaneous expense. So that would be how I would journalize my service charge.